of his last name right now, but it'll come to me. Who was the head of an organization called the Silver Shirts. Fritz Kuhn had the brown shirts, and by the way, in England, you had the Nazis, the BUF, British United Fascist Party, which was led by I can't think of his name. It's not. I'm not going to spend time trying to think of it, but you can. It's all in history, and I'm 84 years of age, so I get a little latitude as far as remembering details like that is concerned.
Don't worry,
but Fritz Kuhn, the major battleground in the United States starts in Newark, New Jersey, Irvington, Union, Springfield, Dover, Butler, Andover. So Fritz Kuhn, he gets a tremendous following. 1939, Madison Square Garden, you can find it on YouTube. 25,000 people jam-packed Madison Square Garden to support Fritz Kuhn and the Nazi Party in the United States.
Publicly?
1939.
Wow. No, I was saying there was like a public, like
Madison Square Garden had a gigantic event. It's all on YouTube. And there were thousands of protesters outside. Anyways, getting back to the early part of the 30s is when the Nazis would meet in Newark at the beer gardens on Springfield Avenue in Irvington. Afterwards, they'd go beat up on Jews in the old Weequahic neighborhood. So there was a prize fighter by the name of Fritz, by the name of oh my goodness gracious, my mind is really bad tonight.
No worries, Myron. I mean, just on the
Nat Arno. Well, he was a dear friend of my father's.
Yeah.
Nat Arno goes to Longie's Wilman and tells him, we need to form an organization. I need a blessing from you. Longie says, go ahead. He says, beat the shit out of these Nazi bastards. And every time that the Nazis would meet at the beer gardens, our guys would go in. It's all contained in a book called The Nazis in Newark, written by a very dear friend of mine, Warren Grover. I introduced him to all of my father's friends. My father was part of that organization, major supporter, and together with his brother Nat. And they so the Minutemen went in and beat him up. Meyer Lansky was asked by Judge Nathan Perlman in New York to do the same thing to the Nazis when they were meeting up in Yorkville on Amsterdam Avenue or 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue and 85th, 86th Street was the nucleus of the German community in Manhattan. And our guys, Meyer Lansky, went in and with a crew of guys. And by the way, Lucky Luciano came to Meyer Lansky. Again, understand the mentality of the Jewish mob. It wasn't just alone of the question of making money illegally. It was a certain pride, all right? Just like in the Italian neighborhoods, all right? When you had a problem, who did you go to? You went to the Godfather and Godfather, I got a problem. So could I get an expeditious judicial resolution?
Yep.
Your mob was not just limited to the question of we make money. In the case of the Jews, by the way, Lucky Luciano offered to Meyer Lansky as many of my guys that you need in order to beat up those Nazis. And Meyer Lansky, who was a Jewish patriot, says to Lucky Luciano, said to him, thank you, Charlie, but I'm going to resolve this as a Jewish problem, and I need to resolve it with Jewish fists. And went in exclusively with Jews and beat the crap out of the Nazis in Yorkville. Dave Berman, who was a gangster in St. Paul, Minneapolis, together with Yudi Bloom and with the King Khan and Sam Taran and Herman Pastor, they beat up Dudley, William Dudley, the guy that I mentioned who was the head of the Silver Shirts in St. Paul and Minneapolis.
Yeah.
By the way, in Chicago, you had the Jewish mob that was led by a lot of guys that were connected with Al Capone, and they beat up the anti-Semites, the Nazis in Chicago. when I tell people one of the hitters, one of the sluggers was a fellow by the name of Jacob Rubenstein. People say, Myron, who's Jacob? Who the hell is Jacob Rubenstein? I said, well, if I make it a little bit easier, I'm sure you'll recognize Jack Ruby.
Oh,
holy shit, Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby was a Jewish patriot. He helped beat up the anti-Semites in Chicago. He worked with Barney Ross, Triple Crown prize fighter, champion, hero at Guadalcanal, and so forth.
wow.
And people were shocked when I told them Jack Ruby was a patriot, a Jewish patriot. All right. Everybody, of course, knows who Jack Ruby is and so forth. But this was an ongoing event that took place throughout the entire United States, including, by the way, Los Angeles. Eventually, of course, once the war started, once Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, the next day, Roosevelt declared war on Japan, and in turn, the Axis of Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. Now there was another event called Operation Underworld, which people don't know about. But there was a very famous ship called the SS Normandy, which was a French luxury ship that was commissioned by the United States Department of Navy immediately after World War II began.
Yeah.
And it was commissioned by the Department of Navy to be refitted to ship and send troops to Europe to fight the Germans, the Nazis. That ship was mysteriously blew up in the port of New York. It sunk. Charles Heffenden, Department of Navy, I'm going to make the story a little short. It reached out for Moses Polikoff, the attorney from Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, requested a meeting with Myron Lansky. Lucky